many years ago, let's say in 60s or in 70s, this move was considered to be totally innocent because black could play d4. But now we know that after e4, knight d4, white could play even either b4 or even such a strange moves like bishop e2 or knight e5. And despite black got some control in the center, its knight on d4 is not very solid. And see, black still is struggling how to resolve the problem of their bishop on c8, because after b6, the c6 square is going to be weak. So both bishop e2 here in this position and knight e5 and even b4 are giving white an edge. So that's why eventually it was black that decided not to go, not to push d4 and to look for other options. One of them is just to take on c4. But here, after bishop takes c4, queen d1, outside of a part of normal rook takes d1, followed by castle and e4, which was played several times, and one of the nice games was won by Kramnik against Yusupov in rapid chess in Moscow in 1995, I think. There is also king takes d1. Which seems a little bit illogical, but in fact has plenty of logic, because in the endgame, when queens are exchanged, the king is normally well located in the center. So the e2 square is an ideal square for white's king. And then, if we consider it's an ideal square for white's king, then white to bring rook from c1 to d1, while we can just put a king on e2 and to bring rook on d1. So saving time, because rooks on c1 and d1 are also ideally located for this configuration. So black normally refrains from this endgame. Also, Kramnik himself made a draw against Boris Gelfand, playing rook d8 check, king e2, and bishop d7. But more often, black plays here a6, trying just to keep some pressure and preparing, the retreat for bishop on a7. So, and after cd5, ed5, white cannot take on d5 because knight takes d5, rook c5, knight takes f4, and now you cannot take on a4 because of queen a7 check. But if you take on d8, then probably knight g2 is good enough to equalize. Bishop g2, rook takes d8. Also black could take on d5 with a queen, probably take with a queen, knight takes d5, rook c5, take on e4, and then probably play even bishop g4, having also sufficient compensation. Even probably starting with rook e8 check here, and then playing bishop d4, because knight e5, f6 is just white is losing the piece. So after a6, the best line for white would be to play b4 here. And now normally black goes on d6, although bishop a7 and bishop e7 are not refuted. The idea is white, after both of these moves, play c5, keeping black pawn on d5 intact, but gaining an advantage on the queen side, and preparing the comfortable development. So black's advance in the center is proved to be too slow. So bishop d6 is it's a main line, and now white suddenly goes bishop g5. So, and after a5, b5, knight e5, knight e5, bishop e5, c5, another complicated position just occurred. And white gave up, its position in the center, but as you could see, had a big advantage on the queen side, because pawns are advanced, and then black bishop is still on c8. So we can look at number of games, namely again Kramnik and Ant, and a few others, and so far there is no final verdict in this position. The game is complicated, and for instance, after a4, a4, black is creating chances, related to the queen a5. White must play f4, bishop c3, rook takes c3, then h6, bishop takes f6, queen takes f6, queen d4. That's the rook c3. I think it's yes. Oh, yeah. Of course, black is playing e5 immediately. So of course e5 immediately, because now after f takes e5, black king goes on a5, and white is losing its rook. Because of the pin, and there's no bishop takes f6 protecting the rook. Pawn on e5 already blocked this diagonal. So after e5, white must take on f6. Queen takes f6, f takes e5, queen h4, g3, queen e4, rook g1, and the position is very complicated. Queen takes e5, queen goes on d4. That's the main line. That's in fact the game Kramnik Anand. And for instance, recently I decided to deviate from this line against Peter Nielsen in rapid chess, playing knight e7, which is a very risky approach. And after bishop f6, gf6, I think playing queen a4, he could get some advantage. So still, as you could see, plenty to find out. There's no final verdict. There is no clear advice, even from the strongest players, where to go and how to go. So that's probably the beauty of the line with bishop f4. The positions could be different. Black could play c5 or could play knight bd7, and there are many lines where there's still plenty of room for improvement. Just to remind you that big complications could arise in the middle of nowhere, in the middle of desert. After knight bd7, c5, c6, b4, b6, bishop d3, a5, bishop a3, bishop a6. There is a white could play d5. Then bishop b7, and then pawns on exchange, or white could play bishop takes a6, rook takes a6, b5, cb5, c6, queen c8, and c7. And this position looks absolutely unclear. White's pawn on c7, black has an extra pawn, he just plays eventually b4, white plays knight b5. The number of games were played. No one, has a clue what's the evaluation of this position. But it's a clear demonstration. It's not about the opening that looks dull and quiet and offers very little hope for taking initiative. It's just about the player's mood. It's about their preparation. It's about their way of presenting their opening ideas. There's always room for improvement. There's always room for complications. There's always room for excitement. There's always a possibility to play a very entertaining game. So line with bishop f4 remains a solid weapon for white to deviate from the traditional Queen's Gambit declined simplifications. But on the other hand, it offers black extra opportunities to make sure that they are not just fighting for equality, but they could be also a side to fight for initiative as well.